All right, on tonight's episode of Python Papi, we're back inside our artificial intelligence course, and we're still doing our natural language module. Let's have a look at what we went over tonight. Now, the last thing I think we went over last night was the one hot representation. I don't think we went over the definition, so let's pick up where we left off last night. So, a one hot representation is a representation of meaning of a word as a vector with a single one, and with other values is zero. Let's take a look at what that looks like really quickly. You can see this is an example of a one hot. You see here we have a one here in the ones place. That's going to represent our word he because it's first, and the rest of the values are zero. The word rope is the second word. You can see the one is represented in the second location. The rest of the values are zero, and so on and so forth. So that's an example of a one hot representation. And so in doing this, we now have a numeric representation for every word, and we can pass in those vector representations into a neural network or other models that require numeric data as input. But this one hot representation actually has a couple of problems and is not ideal for a few reasons. One reason is here we're just looking forwards. But if we imagine we have a vocabulary of thousands of words or more, these vectors are going to get quite long in order to have a distinct vector for every possible word in our vocabulary. And as a result of that, these longer vectors are going to be more difficult to deal with, more difficult to train, and so on and so forth. And so that might be a problem. Another problem is a little bit more subtle. If you want to represent a word as a vector, and in particular the meaning of a word as a vector, then ideally it should be the case that the words that have similar meanings should also have similar vector representations, so that they're close to each other inside of a vector space. But that's not really going to be the case with these one hot representations, because if we take some similar word, let's say the word wrote and the word author, which means similar things, but they have entirely different vector representations. Likewise, book and novel. Those two words mean something similar, but they have entirely different vector representations. So that's not ideal either. So what we might be interested in instead is some distributive representation. And that's representation of a meaning of a word distributed across multiple values instead of just being a one hot with a one in one position. So here is what a distributive representation of words might be. Each word is associated with some vector of values with the meaning distributed across multiple values, ideally in such a way that similar words have a similar vector representation. You can see here we still have our sentence. He wrote a book, but this time it's written in distributive representation. We don't have any ones or zeros. This time it's spread across multiple values. Now we did do a lot more note taking and we did dive a lot deeper, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We did a little modeling and some other representations, but we're going to keep that for next time. I will keep you posted every step of the way, of course. For now, this is the Python Poppy. You guys stay Gucci.